Hello, this is the Conquering Hill podcast, and I'm your host, Nicholas Gagnier. And today I have a very special guest. His name is Tommy Maloney. Tommy Maloney is the executive producer and host of the podcast Blending the Family, where you can find on Apple Podcasts, iHeartRadio, Spotify, and Stitcher Radio. Tommy has also spoken at TEDx, Ignite Fort Collins, and was a keynote speaker at Everything Dad Convention. He even has won speaking awards through Toastmasters International. He is the author of the book 25 Tips for Divorced Dads, Why Not You, Why Not Me, and My Dad's Advice at 5:04 a.m. He's also written for magazines The Good Men Project, Modern Gladiator, and Nurture magazine. Plus, he contributed as a writer to other books, The Expert's Guide to Teenagers and Father-Daughter Conversation. Tommy enjoys a glass of red blend while writing or hiding from the family. A dad to Betsy, Becca, Connor, and dogs, Duke, rest in peace, Duke, and Otis. A husband to Anne, where they live right now in Colorado. Thank you for so much for coming on today, Tommy.
Nicholas, I am so honored to be on your program. So I am stoked, and I am ready to just spew out nonsense for you and your listeners.
Absolutely. Well, let me just first start off congratulating you on your latest book, My Dad's Advice at 5:04 a.m. The title is great, and I think the advice that he gives, I'll let you tell the audience about it, is at first when you first hear the advice, you kind of question, well, does that make sense? But then, it really does as you stop and ponder and think about what it really means. So go ahead. Um, Tell the audience about what kind of advice did your father give you at 5:04 a.m.?
Well, let's take a little backstory. So the reason the title is "My Dad's Advice at 5:04 a.m." is my son Connor was born at 5:04 a.m. March 11th, 2003. So he is a 20-year-old young man, and when your kids are first born, Nicholas, you got to make those phone calls to the parents to say, "Hey, congratulations, you're on lack of sleep," um, and you have a little bit of adrenaline, but at the same time, it's like you just want to let the folks know that they're grandparents now, and you just want to move on and go. Make sure your wife is okay. You want to make sure your baby's okay, and eventually get some sleep. So I called at the time my former wife's mom to let her know. Hung up the phone, called my mom, hung up the phone, and then called my dad. And that's where, Nicholas, that's where things got interesting. So the advice portion of it was, so I'm on the phone with my dad, and a little bit of backstory with my dad was this: he didn't want to be called grandpa. He didn't want to have one of those nicknames. He didn't want to be a grandfather per se. He still wanted to be a loving, caring member of the family. But my dad still thinks he's the swinging Chicago guy. Uh, Far from it. But he said to me, Nicholas, he just goes, well, do you know what your responsibility and your role is right now of being a dad? And like I said, Nicholas, it's been a long night. You're tired. You just want to go to sleep. And all I could think of when my dad was asking me this question was just simply, I'm just here to support my son and love him, and that's all I could come up with. And he said, no, your role as a father right now is to screw them up as best you can, just like I did with you. And I'm just like, I don't have time for this, Dad. I'll talk to you later. Love ya.
Yeah, screw up your child's life, right? So when you first, when you hear that or if you give that advice, like it's like what why? Where's that coming from, when you really truly think about it. But then as I read your book and raising my children as well, you kind of understand where, you know, there's no perfect parent, there's no perfect family, there's no perfect child. So we do have to get them ready, like you said, your child now is 20 years old, correct? Right? So like
Correct.
you
Yeah.
did the best you can with the amount of time you had with them to get that your child ready for life, and that is our job as parents, right? We want our children to go farther than us. You want them to accomplish greater things than ourselves, and we just want them to be prepared. We want them to be happy, but we also understand, as since we've gone through this life, like it's not always easy. There's going to be some ups and downs, and we also want to prepare them for that. So by using your father's phrase, screw up screw up your child's life as much as I screwed up yours, you know, in a backwards kind of way, that is powerful advice.
Well, I look at it from my dad's point of view, and that is, he always felt that he was never, just like you said, Nicholas, he was not a perfect dad, and I think that really uh, hurt him for the fact that he really wanted to be present. He really wanted to be, a dad that, have those father son moments and things like that. But, you know, uh, as a divorced dad myself, I can really relate to what my dad was trying to get to. And that is, you know, just be there for your kids, be present, be, in the moment. And so, I I I took that advice, and after I got to really think about it, I took it, but I reversed engineered it. And so I look at, what my relationship with my son, it's totally different than my relationship with my dad. So for example, my son Connor, I was a stay-at-home dad for his first almost 2.5 years of being on this planet. So right from there, we built a good relationship with my dad and I. It took us many years for us to really build a solid relationship, and I'm happy to say that I constantly am. At least once a week, he and I are talking. So it's exactly what you're saying, Nicholas. There's no perfect parent. Yes, we think our kids are salt of the earth, but there are times where you just want to, you just have to walk away. And so I'm very proud of my dad, and and at the same time, I'm super proud of my son of what some of the things he's accomplished in the 20 years he's been on this planet.
Yeah, I have 3 children, and like I said, sometimes it's easy to walk away, right? Because,
Hmm.
we have to control our emotional state, and it's easier said than done. I think, a a sign of a strong person is someone who doesn't show weakness in the emotional sense, where you have control of your emotions. So if you can fly off the handle really easily, you're not there, emotionally and mentally to withstand whatever's happening, whether it's an argument or just the constant fighting amongst the children. Doesn't have to be with yourself per se, right? So being a parent, it's always a work in progress, in my opinion. Some days are better than others, but I wouldn't change anything for the world. I mean, I'm so blessed to have the 3 of my children. I'm also, you know, I I'm on my second marriage, and I understand how you also talk about in the book, where during your divorce, like, you couldn't stand to even speak with her, and you didn't want to, but you had to fight for it to be able to see your son, right? Explain to the audience what happened there, where you didn't want your ex-wife to lead the state.
Yeah. So one morning, I received an email from my former spouse saying that um, our son wanted to move out of state, and at the time he was, oh gosh, 7, maybe 6. And the first thing that came to my mind is this is not his idea. And so, yeah, um, it was a court battle. It was to put it bluntly, a financial battle. Um, I had to borrow money from family members. My now current wife, I had to borrow money from her. um, to pay the lawyer to keep uh, Connor in state, and it was an emotional struggle. I mean, as you know, Nicholas, throughout the book, I talk about my depression and my suicides, and it was one of those moments in life where you really had to judge. I really judged myself, and I judged the fact that, is it worth going through this, or would it be easier for me to just step away, either physically or emotionally, um, of this process of having to deal with court and having to deal with trying to find the money, to keep the money into the lawyer to make sure that there's no way that my son was leaving the state. So that was um, that was rough. That was rough, and I know of other parents that have gone through similar situations. I know somebody personally that spent over $100,000 in a custody battle, 10 years of a
Wow.
custody battle. Don't get me started on family court. I'll I'll be on my soapbox. But to to your point, Nicholas, it was rough. It was a rough time having to go to court, and essentially you are on the witness stand proving why you're a good parent, and you're proving why your child should stay in state with you. And so I am very grateful for my attorney. I'm very grateful for the judge who saw the benefit of keeping Connor in state. And so it's um, it's something I have buried in the back of my mind.
Right, right. I can only imagine how that could take a toll on you, right? Because we all feel, I mean, like I said, we're not all perfect parents, but to have to prove to someone how much you love your child is like, well, who the hell are you? Like, this is my child. I brought my child into this world. I love him more than anyone else, more than you certainly will. Obviously the mother is different. Hey, Stone, because one of my boys coming, well, my only boy coming right through here. One of my kids. How's it going?
What's his name?
His name's Stone Wolf.
Oh my gosh, that's an awesome name.
Yeah, it's a pretty cool name. He just turned 3. And
Oh,
my other daughter,
congratulations.
thank you. My daughter, Serafina Freedom, she is 5, and then my oldest daughter, Solange Destiny, she's 13. So, but right now she's in Panama. So she's from my first marriage, and I can certainly relate to the difficulties of having a conversation with your ex, right? I mean, for the longest time, even now, like it won't take long. I have to really, if I'm in a conversation with, I have to be calm. But our communication, we don't have much. I'm lucky in that sense where I don't speak to her very often. Obviously, she lives there. She lives in Panama, and half the year I'm in Panama. But right now I'm in Massachusetts, and she's been stubborn enough where she doesn't want to speak with me. And I don't want to speak with her either. So in a sense, we both we both made out, right? Um,
Right.
financially speaking, we were able to get a divorce in Panama because I was married in Panama, and then we also got married here for whatever reason. I don't know why the hell I did that, but I but I got the divorce out there in Panama, and the basic agreement was we'd cover the cost 50% each of us, right? So um, we did that, and I thought I had to have a divorce here as well since I got married here. So I went to the divorce court here in Fall River, and that day I brought my divorce papers from Panama. And when it was my turn to plead my case, I explained the situation, and the judge looked at me. She just like, "What do you don't? I don't need to do anything. You're already divorced." And I thought, like, yes. So she had no idea I was doing this, right? So I'm like, this is fantastic.
Celebration.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. And But back to my point was my current wife, I when she came out to Panama for the first time, and we had a conversation. I had a conversation with my ex-wife over the phone or whatever it was. I don't even remember, but it didn't take long for just to escalate and just to yell at each other, kind of thing. Um, and my wife Stephanie, she was basically says, why do you allow yourself to get to that point, and so when I do have a conversation far in between with her, like I try to just play it calm as much as I can, as long as I can, because I know it won't take long for her to, go off the rails, and then basically it's having a conversation with a wall. From my perspective, like I can listen to her scream and scream, but like I can't even get a word in. It's like, all right, are you done now? Can I speak now? And even so, like it doesn't. The point is moot. So for relationships, for people going through divorces or have been divorced and having to speak with their ex husband or wife, ex spouse, and it's not easy, and I completely understand where they're coming from. But like you said in your book, the most important thing is still to be there for your child, no matter what, no matter how bad it is, and to be present for their to be part of their life. And I take that to heart. Um, I built my goal was to build a home in Panama and I'm turning into a hostel business there just so I could spend my life with my daughter. And because I didn't, I had when we had a divorce, I had to come back to Massachusetts. I had nothing there. My house was taken from me that I had built with cash and credit cards. Like from scratch, it might have cost me like $5,000-6,000, right? So imagine that building a house, a small little house, and pays out of cement and paying them for like 5-6K. And then a year or two later, it was taken from me, and my family was taken from me basically, and so I had nowhere to go but back east to Massachusetts. And that was the darkest point of my life. You know, Not so much the fact where I lost, my wife. I At that point I didn't really care at all. It was the ability to see my daughter and like to be able to raise her for all those years. And just like that was taken from me, and that was a true pain, which I was able to use as fuel to follow my dream and build a hostel so I could spend my life with her. And obviously right now she just started school in Panama, so in March, so their school year is a little bit different. And since COVID, she's been out of school for the last couple of years. We've been homeschooling, which is not easy being a parent as well. Try being a father and a teacher, that's not easy as well. So I commend anyone who can accomplish that. But also my daughter, she was 12, now she's on 13, so her body's changing, her hormones are changing and all this stuff, so it was never easy. So she wanted to go back to school, and okay, so you want to go back to school in Panama and have that social aspect, all power to you. But I still have to work, and I still have to make money and survive. So me, my two little ones, and my current wife Stephanie, we're here working our butts off, and we'll be back there soon enough. But those are tough choices. I always tell people, my life is complicated. Try having a child and an ex-wife in a different country, and make some decision. Can you live there if you can't work legally, especially in a country where the minimum wage is like $2-3 an hour? So like, and try to live your life and see how that works out. So I've been lucky enough, and through the years, her mother, I would say, has been willing for whatever reason to, because in Panama you have to have documents signed to leave the country with your child. So there's a lot of child trafficking and all that kind of jazz. So whenever it was time to leave Panama and I wanted my daughter to come with me, we'd have to have a document signed, get it notarized, and inspected by the immigration at the airport. It's always a lot of stress. But throughout the years, every single time I wanted to come back with my daughter, she always came. And basically the last time she came here was during COVID, and that was going on like, obviously we got stuck here. Everything closed, so we were here for more time than we expected, and she didn't see her mother for close to a year. So since then, she's
Ooh.
afraid to come here. She's afraid to come back here because she's afraid that we're gonna get stuck again, or I'm gonna decide to stay a little bit longer. So last year when we came back to work half the year, she didn't come, and this year she started school, so it's another reason why she's not here with me at the moment. But I've been blessed enough to have her come with me ever since I started building the hostel and living out there half the year. So I didn't lose those years, thankfully. When she was younger, you know, between 1 to 4, when I had to come here to work because I couldn't make money in Panama, and as my previous marriage deteriorated because I wasn't there. I missed some of her life, and I regret that. That you can never get that back. That's one thing, you can never get that back. Time with someone, no matter how much money you make in life, and no matter how many successful things you accomplished throughout your life, the time with your family and loved ones, you can never have enough, in my opinion.
Well, time is currency. I
Hmm.
mean, it's exactly what you're saying. You can't get that time back, and I think that's part of where my dad gets a little bit of dad guilt is that I'm and I really can't speak for him other than the, it feels like from my point of view that he lost out on things because of our distance and our relationship. And um you know he wanted to be, again, he just wanted to be a single guy in downtown Chicago and having fun and not having responsibilities. But at the same time, I because when I got remarried, I inherited two fantastic bonus daughters. And so we took a trip to Chicago a few years ago, and my dad treated the girls just like they were his flesh and blood too, just like they were his granddaughters. And so my dad he's got a great heart. Um, but again, I you know, feel that, like you were saying, Nicholas, it's that time that you feel you will always have it. And that's one of the things I also tell, other dads is, don't take your time with your kids for granted, because you just never know. You never know when, you're going to end up in divorce court or separation, and you don't get that time back.
Right, and I like the term uh bonus children, bonus daughters, bonus dad, bonus wife, like instead of using step. I found that very interesting in your book. It's a positive connotation to it, right? So when you hear the word stepsister or stepdad, it's like something's off with it, right? When you say step. But
Yes.
when you say bonus, it sounds like you win. Awesome, I
Yeah.
won, right?
Yeah. Well,
I like
the
that.
funny part of all that is, in the introduction when you talk about the red wine, that's how I escape. That came from a couple of things. Number one, I'm such an introvert, and when my wife and I first got married, coming up on 11 years, we had not only, three kids. My wife's niece moved in with us. We had two dogs at the time. um, every other weekend there was a lot of estrogen in the house. And so there are times where my wife would tell me I would need an adult timeout. And the greatest thing that I inherited when I got married to my wife Ann was she has a wine refrigerator. So I would grab a bottle of wine, grab a glass, and then come into my office and just, again, have an adult timeout. Um, but along those lines, it was, we never understood what the word step meant. And so it's exactly what you're talking about. It's like Cinderella. She had evil stepsisters versus putting that positive spin on. And I don't know where I heard it. I picked it up somewhere. And I remember one time I was on being interviewed on a TV show, and I used that, and the host said, "What? Hold on, what did you just say? What bonus?" I go, "Yeah. What? Tell me what step means." And I always remember the line in the TV show The Brady Bunch, and where Bobby Brady said he used the word stepsister, and Carol Brady said the only steps in this house lead upstairs. And I've always loved that because if you recall the show, if your listeners recall the show, they never said step. It was always my this is my brother, this is my sister, this is my mom, this is my dad. They took the labels out, and I always loved that, and how ahead of their time the writers were for creating n- the lack of a label. And so I've always tried to put that positive spin. I mean, we're as a family unit, we're past the label, so it is my these are my daughters, and they still call Connor, it's just the boy. That's his label, has always been the boy. So I am very blessed, just like you were talking about, that I have two fantastic daughters that have welcomed Connor into the family, welcomed me into the family, and so that's part of the reasons why I started the podcast, Blending the Family, because there was no real good content out there to talk about how to build a blended family, how to have a positive blended family. And so I just love what my wife and I created, and one of the first things was taking those labels off and using the word bonus to put that positive spin on our family dynamics.
Yeah, you spoke about in your book when you first met your daughters, soon to be daughters, right? And your bonus daughters, and you were having Connor meet them for the first time, right? And you had an agreement with your wife, and that we're only going to move forward if the children get along. Speak about that moment where, all of this is riding on someone else's feelings instead of yourself.
You know, the thing is, it's not fair to the kids when you are starting a new relationship. So for my wife and I think it was maybe we dated for a little bit over a month before we introduced the kids. Because number one, we need to figure out each other. We both came from very similar marriages where our former partners were very a personality, very controlling, and we didn't want to repeat that marriage. And so we took the time to figure out our relationship. And then when it was time to introduce the kids, again, we took a vow that if the kids didn't get along, we weren't going to continue on, because again, it's not fair to them. They should have a say in it. And matter of fact, when we went house hunting for all of us, all the kids were involved. Whatever house we would look at, we would make sure that we'd have all the kids with us. And so it goes back to what you were saying earlier. In a divorce situation, in a co-parenting situation, you have to put the kids first, and that's what my wife Ann and I did. We were going to put the kids first no matter what. And so that first meeting with the girls, it was a lot of fun. We went to an outdoor ice rink. I I kind of cheated because um, I was coaching hockey. My son plays hockey. He still plays hockey, and I thought, well, the girls, they don't spend a lot of time skating, but both girls are fantastic athletes. So the first thing was we show up, we're standing in the middle of this ice rink, and my one daughter Becca comes up to Connor, looks at him up and down, and says, smacks him in the shoulder, says, "Tag, you're it." The two of them took off. We named them the Wonder Twins because they really could be brother and sister. They look very similar. And right there, I knew my wife and I were on the positive path with all the kids.
That's a wonderful story. There's, I don't know the statistics, but there's a large, large portion of blended families in America, and I know, it's probably not always easy for all families, all parties involved. What would you say to them is your best advice?
Well, it's something that we've already touched on it, and that is definitely putting the kids first. And
Hmm.
yeah, my wife and I went to extremes about saying that if the kids didn't get along, we were not going to continue dating. So you, it's I would say a few things as the wheels are turning. Number one, when you come out of a divorce, you really should not only focus on your relationship with your kids, but focus on you. So, for example, maybe while you were married, there was a hobby you wanted to do, but your former spouse didn't allow you to do that. So, this is an opportunity to take whatever that hobby was off the shelf, dust it off, and kind of find yourself where what made you happy. That's going to trigger so many endorphins that you're going to get to a point where, okay, I enjoy doing this, what's next? Because your happiness will then um, trickle down to your kids as well. So as I always tell, you know when I've coached divorced men before, it's number one, what is it that you want to enjoy once again? And again, just making sure that the kids come first, and making them part of decisions. I mean, after I got divorced the first time, my son and I went to the furniture stores, and I kind of encouraged him, but I let him pick his furniture out, because when he's staying with me, I want that to be a happy place. I don't want him to constantly go, this place sucks. I want him to have environment that's safe for him, that's a space for him that he's going to enjoy. So again, number one, work on yourself. Number two, put the kids first. Number three, life is short, man.
Mm, sure is. Life is short. You know, yeah, unfortunately, it's shorter for some than others. And we only got one shot at it, one crack at it, and along the way, it's important to learn, from our, past transgressions or failures. It's part of life. You can't let that hold you down. They always say what? It's a Japanese proverb: fall down 8 times, get up nine, or fall down nine, get up
Exactly.
10. You know, and it's important because you decide how far you're going to go in this life. You decide, your mindset, your emotional state, the majority of the time, right? There's outside forces that are always punching at you, but at the same time, if you control your emotional state as you move forward, you can, create the life you really truly want. And finding happiness, right? And you don't want it to be fleeting. You want to find that joy. And I always find, being with family and loved ones, and no matter how much little time that day, or you want to be present, you want to enjoy as much as you can, because life is way, way too short. And which, like I said, this is this is just one roller coaster that we have. You've got this ticket on it for, so it's, you gotta go, go up, you gotta come down, and go back around. You're gonna have this amazing ride, and you want to have the best time possible, but you also want to, just capture. Sometimes you always want to capture those small moments and just put it in a bottle, and just look back on it. And it's like, I try. I find myself sometimes just like, wow, where did the time go? Or my son's already 3, my daughter's 13. What? Where did the last 10 years go? Right? Or like my wife. Now we started 2016. We went to Panama together, and now it's 2023. We've been married for almost a couple of years now, and it's like 7 years. What, like, how did this happen? And it's like, I want 100 years with you. I want as much time as possible with you. And this life can be a very, very beautiful thing if you embrace it. And you know tough times, they don't last. Tough people last, right? So just what if you're listening out there and you're going through a difficult time, or a difficult divorce, those are dark times, and we're not going to sugarcoat it, but you can get through it. And like you said, concentrate on your children, concentrate on what makes you happy, right? What something does something off that you used to care about, it's a hobby that you put away, things that will bring back some great memories and kind of and help you get through those moments, because those things aren't going to last. You're gonna move on eventually. It could be a long road, but there's no reason to keep yourself down, or find yourself abusing substances just to numb the pain. We've all been there, but at the same time, speaking from my perspectives, like those times, they're not going to last, but you can use those as fuel. You can utilize those things to kind of get you going in the right direction again.
Yeah, that's a brilliant point right there. Use them as fuel. I mean, I remember, when I first went through my divorce, it was, um, I, I was hitting the weight room, and I got a little nuts because I ended up screwing up my back. But it was, for me, it was the ability to just take some stress out, and like you were just saying too, Nicholas, it, it wasn't me. I couldn't tell you. I think back in college, I smoked pot, but that was it. That's as far as it ever went. But for me, it was just trying to find some healthy type outlets to just relieve stress. And I'll be an advocate for red wine, but in moderation.
Yeah, of course. No, but exercise goes a long way. Even now, like I wake up in the morning and the first thing I do, I don't know, it's psychological now that I have to do it. When I wake up in the morning, my back is awful too. My back is gone. I feel bad for myself 30, 40 years from now, but I do a couple stretches and I hammer out, 41 push-ups because I'm 40 years old. So I hammer out 41 push-ups to start my day, and that's like a psychological thing that I have to do. And if I don't do it, I don't feel right, and I never forget. It's like brushing my teeth, roll out of bed,
Right,
41,
right.
41. My eyes might be closed while I'm doing it, but I'm still doing it. And it's just something for me just to kind of keep the blood flowing. But you're right about as far as releasing stress and exercise and going for a walk, being in nature, little things, just to breathe some fresh air. Those things go a long way when you're in a tough time. And yeah, it's easy to get into drugs or, substances that might help you escape, but that's not going to last, and you're only hurting yourself in the end, right? And you're probably hurting your family members as well, and maybe your children as well too. So you know you can do better. There's always room for improvement, but I'm a big advocate for exercising no matter what. If you're in a dark place, or if you're not, because that can help you, your creative juices at times flow as well, and you can think more clearly. um, my ideal day, which I don't hit it as much as I really wish, would be, when having children and a job, especially here. I could hit it in Panama sometimes a little bit more because I had the open mornings, but now working, it's a little more difficult. But waking up, exercising, meditating, writing, reading, or even yoga. If I could squeeze that all in with like an hour period, hour and a half period, my day is the trajectory is going to be fantastic. And saying this now, I'm going to try to do that tomorrow because I know I have a better day every single time that happens. So, but routine, being in a positive routine goes a long way in life. Um, I'm interested in hearing about some of the people that you have helped along the way. How fulfilling is that?
Oh, um, it's wow, you stumped the band here. Um, I don't know if it's a mantra or if it's just the way I've been wired. And you're talking about, in essence, being a good um, role model to your kids. Well, I look at like my dad. My dad, his nickname in Chicago is the mayor of Michigan Avenue, because Michigan Avenue is the major street that runs through Chicago. And my you couldn't walk 10 feet without my dad saying hi to somebody he knew. My dad, early career was in sales, so he knew a lot of people, but it was how he treated other people. His biggest rule that I always witnessed was when we'd go out to dinner or lunch or breakfast, he would always make sure he got the waiter or waitress's name, and he would use their name. He wouldn't just hear it, he would use their name. So, I've taken that um, advice really without my dad telling me to try to be of service to other people, either mentoring people or coaching people. And it is so much fun when you see either the light bulb go off or they take action, and that is huge. I remember seeing and hearing the great Zig Ziglar many years ago, and he would talk about motivation, and he would say, I can't motivate you. I can give you the information, but it's up to you to go and take that information and create action and motivate yourself. And so I love talking to people that, that might be struggling, but if the two of us can figure out how to get that person on a better path, that's success to me. And that's how I normally end my podcast. Is I always say your success is my success, and I got that from an interview I heard with Terry Crews, the actor, who spent several years trying to make it in NFL. But Terry Crews would talk about how he would be in Hollywood and he'd be walking the streets and he'd see a billboard and he would see like a brand new show, and this actor got this brand new show, and he'd be like, hold on here, I tried out for that part, I didn't get that part. And then he started thinking about it, going, hold on, that means that person got that job, that means there's another job out there for me, so their success will be my success. And so that's been my mantra for a few years, is that if that person is successful because of a little brainstorm that we figured out, then I feel like I'm successful too.
Yeah, right. I mean, that's the whole. If someone out there can do it, then that means I can do it too because it's already been accomplished, right? So that can go a long way. The truly, if anything you want in life, we put these limitations on ourselves, or maybe some of our loved ones and friends put limitations on ourselves, and we allow that to seep into who we are. But if we just discard those limitations or those self doubting thoughts, like we our mind is very very powerful. We can accomplish pretty much anything we put our mind to. It's going to take some work, there's no doubt about that. It's going to take a lot of effort and discipline along the way. But if you truly want something, like when I was probably, I said, when I traveled to Europe the first time when I was 20 years old, I had an idea I was going to write a journal, and I'd publish a book. But if I was, in the middle of high school, just going through, playing sports, whatever else, like I never thought I was going to publish 4 books, and no, no clue. I had no intention to do that. And maybe when you were growing up as a kid in those early years, did you have any inclination that you might publish books, that you might be hosting a podcast? No,
Oh
that's just
gosh,
kind of how
no.
life. Sometimes that's just how life rolls. Like this podcast that I started was based off my wife's idea. It stemmed from want to become a motivational speaker and helping others, through personal development and giving them ideas and motivating them. But this idea came from my wife. And I love this. I love meeting people. I love speaking to people like yourself with amazing stories, inspiring stories. And it I would have never met. I would have never met you, and or anyone else I've spoken with. Like that's just how the universe works. So by taking this path, it has opened up other doors, because that's kind of how life is, right? You open a door and there's more doors and there's people behind it that can help you or inspire you or teach you certain things that you would have never even learned had you not taking that risk. So life is about risks. You can't be afraid. You know, everything in life is a risk. So might as well take some big risks. You know, obviously you want to be smart and you don't want to harm yourself, but like take the chance. Don't be afraid. Go for it. Your time is now. Just go for it.
I always remember when I was coaching hockey and the kids were probably around 8 years old. And my son, he's still, I mean, he's a goalie and he's been a goalie for many, many years. We had one of our first games and he came skating to the bench and he was crying. I go, "Are you okay? Did you get hurt?" He goes, "No, I let in a goal." I'm like, "Dude, we've got 2 more periods to go." You know, and I would always tell the kids, the greatest thing about falling down is getting back up. And at the end of the day, I would always tell the kids, and they always look at me like I had a third eye, but I would always tell them, "Hey, you make a mistake, guess what? Nobody's going to die. It's all good. We're here to just figure it out." And I feel that as adults, we forget about failing. We play it safe too much. And it's exactly what you're saying, Nicholas. Go big or go home. Take those risks. I mean, what's the worst thing that could happen? And it's life was meant to be enjoyed. And so I'm with you. I mean, I remember this morning, the alarm went off at 10 after 5, and my wife and I were out the door by 5:30, and we went to a nature preserve and went for a walk. And when that alarm goes off, you're thinking, "Oh gosh, no, no, no." But once you do it, once you get out there, it feels so good, just like taking a risk. If you fail, guess what? It's a learning opportunity. But if you succeed, that's also a learning opportunity.
Right, and you'll want to take more risks because then you have the capabilities to accomplish the things that you're kind of afraid of, or you don't want to step outside of that comfort zone. And we learn so much about ourselves when we are outside of our comfort zones for sure. Well, Tommy, it was been a pleasure speaking with you. I like I said, I truly appreciate you coming on, and I really thoroughly enjoyed your book. Very relatable, a lot of senses. Please tell the audience where they can find you.
Uh, so you can find me on LinkedIn, the Tommy Maloney. That's Maloney. The website is blendingthefamily.com. That's blendingthefamily.com. You can find resources there on the website. You can go to Amazon and buy the book, My Dad's Advice at 5:04 a.m. Other than that, you'll occasionally find me somewhere having a nice glass of red wine.
Nice, nice. Great choice, Tommy. Thank you so much again for coming on. Best of luck with all your books. And I'm sure you have another book on the way. If you're probably thinking about it, maybe you haven't started it yet, but I got a feeling you're going to write another one pretty soon.
Maybe. this this
Ah,
last one this last one was one of those going, okay, I'm done. But I do have a journal that I carry with me to write down some new book ideas, Nicholas. And so who knows, maybe in a year or less we'll be having this conversation once again. But
well,
thank
I
you
hope
thank you
so.
for starting your podcast, Conquering Hill. I am so grateful to be here. And to your listeners out there, thank you for listening.
Thank you so much, Tom. Have a good one. Bye bye.
You too.
And if you would like to support the podcast, please visit Amazon.com and search Conquering Hill, 50 writing prompts for a dream chaser. And also visit Etsy.com and search Conquering Hill for all our gear. Thank you so much.